You know what's a really interesting thing? If you're missing omega-3s in the first half of your life, you need twice as much for the rest of the second half. That's Dr. Abram Hoffer's kind of theory, that if something's missing, you're going to need more later, a lot more. So the point is, get omega-3s throughout your life. And that's why I love you have these chewable omega-3s for kids. I love those. Because the struggle is to get it in the kid or get it in the diet, something like that. There aren't, you know, it used to be that omega-3s were in our cheese because our goats and our cows were grazing on grass all the time, so they made more omega-3s in the milk and the cheese. It used to be in the foods. It's not. So we have to supplement because fish is not safe. Well, dieting lowers omega-3 levels, and here's some complicated science to show you, yes, omega-3s actually help you burn fat. My two favorite nutrients for weight loss, carnitine, omega-3s. Omega-3s help you burn fat. I believe that. Can't show you a study on that, but I can tell you this. Actually, I can. There's studies to show that omega-3s help burn off fats known as triglycerides. You know, elevated triglycerides. People have elevated triglycerides. I've gotten that down with a low-carbohydrate diet. Fish oils. By the way, I've used Nordic Naturals in my practice for years. It's great stuff. High quality, and the patients like it. And patients have a lot of comments about omega-3s they don't like. So you know all about that. I won't go there. It's great stuff. So omega-3s are very readily used. In other words, they're the first to be burned off because they're so easy to burn off. They'll go quickly, and you've got to put them back. So anyone on a weight loss program has got to be on omega-3 fats. People don't think about, you know, it's a kind of a paradoxical thing to think you're dieting, you're trying to lose fat, take in fat. Omega-3s increase the body's ability to burn fat. They help carnitine work better. Carnitine is a fat-burning nutrient. Omega-3s help it work better. So that's very exciting stuff. Well, here's some foods that don't have any omega-3s in them that some people live on. Is there any omega-3s in these foods? There's no omega-3. I don't see, no omega-3s. Still no omega-3s. And this is some people's daily diet. You know, again, the Skittles and bagel and potato diet. So we have this imbalance, missing omega-3s and too much of what's known as omega-6s, which are safflower, sunflower, corn oil, oils from, you know, fats and meat. And what that does is it makes people very inflammatory. Very inflammatory. Do you have a friend who you say she's maybe, and I'm thinking of no one in this room, please, but I'm someone that I know somewhere else, really, not in this room. Say a 42-year-old woman, and you say, what time is it? And she goes, what do you mean? What do you mean time? Like click like my clock is ticking? Like my life? No. What time? Just what? Like, you know those people that are ready to just jump on top of you and just super sensitive? Okay. That's the way the cells in your body get if they don't have omega-3s. And they have omega-6s. They're just loaded. They're waiting for you to do something they can react. So the body is sitting there, and you've got like an inflammatory tendency. And then something happens. You injure your knee. And the tissues have either so many omega-3s or so many omega-6s. How inflamed that knee gets is going to have a lot to do with what kind of omega-3s are sitting there. You have a brain injury. You have a stroke. How many omega-3s are in your tissues is going to dictate how well you do. It's kind of like, you know, it's like your behavior over your life comes back, your dietary behavior. What's that Bill Cosby book that's just come out? I Am What I Ate, and I'm scared. He just wrote this book. It talks about what he ate. You know, it's a comical book about life in general. At any rate, you've got to get omega-3s in your system over the period of your life. It's a tonic. You know how we think of tonic like tonic herbals? Omega-3 is the ultimate tonic. It's supposed to be in your body at all times. And you can see that our diet is loaded with the pro-inflammatory omega-6s. And a good demonstration would be is if I were to take a washcloth and then imagine a dry washcloth and I were to set it on fire. And it would be burning and the fire department would come, we'd all be run out of the building and I'd be put in jail. Okay, so we won't do that, but we'll have an imaginary washcloth. It's on fire because it doesn't have omega-3s in our analogy here to calm it down. Omega-3s would be like dunking it in water. And then you try to light it, you can't. That's what happens when you can stop inflammation. Now, this may not sound interesting to you. Inflammation, who cares? Well, it's actually very interesting because heart disease, cancer, certain forms of arthritis, certain forms of dementia, everything has to do with inflammation. It's like the bedrock of disease is things getting too imbalanced. And of course, our cattle are being fed corn, which gives them the inflammatory fats, and that means we need to counter that. You know, we can't change the quality of the fats in our diet. We can't go to the food industry and say, would you mind stop feeding all the cattle corn that's grown on fertilizers that are made out of Iraqi oil, please? Could you instead feed them grass? They're not going to do that. But what we can do is have our diet include more omega-3 fats. Here's a chart that shows over time we have more of these liquid vegetable oils. We're getting more inflamed dietarily. We're loading up this inflammatory tendency. And these fats tend to sit in the cell membrane. Where are these fats in your body? You're taking fats. Where do they go? They go in large part into the membranes of your cells when you take an omega-3 fat. Not other fats, but you take an omega-3 fat. An omega-3 fat is not a storage fat. It's not going to go store and sit. It's an active fat. Okay? It's very, very active. And it's a structural fat. It goes and builds things. That's a very important word for you, structural fat. It goes and builds membranes. So it builds membranes in your eye, in your retina, in your brain, in your liver, in your heart. As a matter of fact, omega-3 fats have been found to be so powerfully antiarrhythmic, as we'll see, that they may help reduce heart attack deaths by as much as a third, simply by going to the cell membrane, calming it down, so that it doesn't get too excited. So here's the imbalance. We're all the way to the left with too much omega-6, not enough omega-3. We want to turn that around. The more inflamed the patient, the more omega-3s they need. Some studies in rheumatoid arthritis show up to 10 grams a day. That's right, 10,000 milligrams of omega-3s. That means EPA plus DHA. That doesn't mean a tablespoon, whatever, liquid omega-3. I'm talking about EPA plus DHA, 10,000 milligrams. Of course, the side effects of a large dose of that could be things like perhaps taking longer for blood to clot. So men who shave, I say, you might notice that it might take a little longer for your shaving cuts to heal. People on blood thinners need to be careful. And by the way, fish oils are not a substitute. I know none of you are practicing medicine out there. Don't tell people, oh, you don't need the coumadin, have some omega-3s. Don't do that. Go to jail, do not pass go, do not collect $200. That's medicine. But you've got to be aware that people shouldn't be combining high-dose fish oil with blood thinners. When in doubt, ask your doctor what you should do. That's the best thing you can. I'm a nutritionist. I have a private practice in New York City and Reno, Nevada. I'm going through that Manhattan-Reno phase, everybody goes through in their life, where you live in Dubai. Yeah. So when there's a question, even I say, tell your doctor what you're taking. I make them sign something that says, I'll check with my doctor. So that's the way it ought to be. Well, heart disease, omega-3 fats. There is no more important nutrient for the heart than omega-3 fats. And I think we could greatly reduce heart disease in America if we got more omega-3s into people. So your job as a sales rep, as an educator for Nordic Naturals, has a great mission behind it. If this were a biotin company and we were selling biotin, I could get excited about biotin. Biotin's good for blood glucose. It's involved in certain carboxylation reactions that you would all find fascinating and exciting, I'm sure. But no, you have the most important and exciting nutrient, omega-3 fats. So even if Nordic Naturals made awful, terrible omega-3 fats, but they were still omega-3 fats, we could still get very excited. But no, you have the highest quality omega-3 fats, and you have the single most important nutrient. So if you're not excited, there's something wrong. This is really missing. You have something that's missing. Remember, the number one rule in business is be useful, right? And you're going to be very useful if you get this nutrient, people. In the country of Israel, in the 1960s, when we were in the polyunsaturated craze, eat lots of safflower sunflower corn oil because it lowers cholesterol. By the way, you know how it lowers cholesterol? Drives it into the cell membrane. It really wasn't getting rid of it. Another story there. So the safflower sunflower polyunsaturates being the answer wasn't really the answer. Well, they went crazy in Israel, increased their omega-6 levels so high that they got high rates of everything I've told you about, heart disease, cancer, type 2 diabetes, things like that, insulin resistance. So how not to be healthy? Imbalance your omega-3s. So there's a whole population that went the wrong way. Well, who's been doing the right thing from the beginning? The Eskimos. The more politically correct word is the Inuit. And that's one of the ways we discovered the benefits of omega-3s. And also protein, by the way. They eat a lot of protein. Protein is actually very good for the heart and the arteries.